Thank you for coming back. This is going to be a video on the left-handed knit stitch. So basically what we have is the cast on. The cast on, it looks smooth on one side, it looks bumpy on the other side, and what we're going to be doing is transferring all the stitches from our right-handed needle to our left needle. So when you're knitting left-handed, you will be moving all the stitches from the right hand to the left hand. So what we're going to do is we're taking the long end of the yarn. The long end of yarn is the one in the front here when you see the bumpy side. And we're going to stick our needle into the cast on, sorry. And then we wrap our yarn count, this one's actually clockwise. We bring the needle through and then we drop it off. So we go into the stitch behind the right-handed needle, we wrap clockwise, we bring the needle through, then we drop it off. We go into and behind the left needle, we wrap clockwise, we bring it through that loop, and we drop it off the right-handed needle. So we go in, around, bring through, drop off. In, around, bring through, drop off. And it's very important in knitting that you are wrapping the same direction. There is one method of knitting that isn't the case, but we're not going to get into that. I'll explain it later if any of you wonder why. It's just a cultural, that particular culture knits that way, but that they don't wrap. They pull it through. So we go in, wrap clockwise, bring through, drop off, in, around, pull through, drop off, in, around, pull through, drop off, and start moving your stitches back if they get too close to the front. If you start knitting off of the top that has this curved area and you don't push it back past where that curved area stops, what will happen is your stitches will get so tight it will be hard to knit back into them in following rows. Something I forgot to mention in the right-handed tutorial. Sorry, right-handers. There we go. So when we're done with the row, we put the needle that was in our left hand that we finished knitting with into our right hand, and it's the same thing. We pick up the string, it goes over our left index finger, and you can hold it in your hand like this, or you can hold it in your hand over your ring, under your middle, over your index. Whatever you feel more comfortable with. But the important thing is that we go into the loop behind the right-handed needle, we wrap clockwise, we bring through, drop off. In, around, 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 bring through, drop off. The reason I'm saying this over and over is because when I've always taught knitting and crochet, it helps if you, especially when you're beginning, to chant this until you get the stitch down and you're comfortable with it. If you break it down into those steps, you're not going to leave anything out. In, around, bring through, drop off. In, around, bring through, drop off. In, around, bring through, drop off. And that was the last stitch on the needle. To start a new row, you flip it around, put it in your right hand, switch sides. The empty needle now goes in our left hand. There's the stitches. We take the string that is coming out of the loop. We prepare our hands by putting it over our index finger. We go in, around, bring through, drop off. In, around, bring through, drop off. in, around, bring through, drop off, in, around, bring through, drop off, and just on and on. That's all there is to it. These tutorials on my knitting channel will only be real-time only, unless we're doing some very advanced stuff later on where it requires me to do a lot of work to get to the end of the row. I will show the critical stuff real time and then fast forward to the repetitive stuff and then show real time again when it gets important. So there we go. You would switch your sides. In, around, and I'm going to show you one more thing. In, around, bring through, drop off. In, around, bring through, drop off. In, around, bring, oopsie. In, around, bring through, drop off. In, around, bring through, drop off. So I wanted to show you something that will hopefully save you a lot of trouble later on, and that is if you put your needles down in the middle of a row and you pick them back up, how do you know which way you're knitting? Whichever the yarn, whichever needle it's attached to is the last stitch that you knit. So if you knit left-handed and the needle is attached to the right side, then you would flip it over and put it in your left hand and you're ready to go. And then if it's attached to the left needle, then you know you're in the right place. But that string is always going to be attached to the last stitch that you knit. So if you're left-handed, then you pick it up, put it in your left hand, and continue on. Otherwise, you could have extra rows in the middle of a project. I've seen it happen a lot of times to beginning knitters, and even some intermediate knitters that just, were busy when they picked up their project. So that is that. And if you're wanting to know what it is called, every time you knit every single row, it's called garter stitch. And this is what it looks like. It's a ridgy kind of pattern. So it's that's knitting every single row. Here's another example of that. And then this is stockinette, where you're knitting one row, purling one row. The knit side is smooth looking V's, and the purl side are these little bumps. So we'll be getting into that pretty soon. And if there's anything in particular you'd like to see, let me know. I'll be doing a binding off tutorial for my next tutorial, and then we'll get into the purl. Thanks, guys.